I have a couple visions in my head of where we are as a country, and they're dark. But as we get closer and closer to the asymptote
An asymptote is a line that a curve approaches but never ever really touches.
of our country of falling off the cliff or whatever that is, I think more and more people are going to start looking around and say, wait, 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 we're about to fall off a cliff like lemmings. I see the lemmings falling. I'm not going to keep on going. I said once it was like what we're seeing in our country is like watching 9/11 happen in slow motion.
I'm on the 83rd floor. I'm gonna die, aren't I? No, 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 no. I'm gonna die. Live, say your prayers. God. We're gonna think positive.
Right now I'm picturing it like you're on a mountainside and you are in a sports car, but you're driving slow. So at any moment the car could pick up speed and you're driving towards the edge of a cliff and nobody's looking. The driver's not looking, nobody else is looking. And as we get closer and closer, we see things get more ridiculous. That's all that happened with the pandemic that woke me up. Things got more ridiculous and I woke up. As things get more and more and more ridiculous, more and more people are going to wake up. Headline from the Salt Lake Tribune. Donovan Mitchell, who is an NBA player, said off-court issues made it draining to live in Utah. Donovan Mitchell used to live in Utah, used to play for the Utah Jazz. Very good player. Reminds me of a young Dwayne Wade. I don't watch him now, even though he plays for Cleveland. I don't watch the NBA anymore, and you're going to see why pretty much. A mental health expert says the all-star guard, millionaire, well-off dude, may have been dealing with racial battle fatigue. They just make up terms. This is like what we're seeing is almost like revenge of the African American history majors.
For the first time in American history, 60 high schools across the country will offer an AP African American Studies class this year.
That's right. The course is launching as a pilot program before it expands to 200 schools the following year.
If you go to college and you major in African American history, what do? If you're not going to become Nicole Hannah Jones or Ibram X. Kendi or work for a museum, what do you do with that degree? And I'm not saying that person has that degree, but that's what it feels like. There's nothing that they can do other than vie for power in whatever aspect of life they work. So I looked at this headline. I'm going to take this to slavery in a second, so stay with me on my conclusion. They're trying to convince us that a millionaire athlete, Donovan Mitchell, who's been pampered since probably middle school, he's a star, but for sure since high school, was mentally drained because of microaggressions and other various racial things. Life was simpler when they were just labeled a bitch. People like him were just labeled a bitch. That life was simpler. I'm not saying it was right, but it was simpler. Maybe better, maybe healthier. At what point do y'all stop with this dumb ish because nobody cares? That's the white pill. People are afraid. The bad side is people are afraid to say anything. And when people can use their name, go on social media and say this is bullish, then we know the tide will be changing. We're not close to that. You saw that report from that gaming company. Somebody got fired, not because of what they said, because they followed somebody that people didn't like.
Game distributor Limited Run Games has fired their community manager, seeming over public outcry of who they follow on Twitter.
We're not there yet, but I think people in their head are like, I don't care anymore. And then we can get to the next step. And I'm going to take a hard left turn over into slavery. Let's watch this TikTok right here. I really like TikTok, man. It gives you a window to people's soul, very similar to Twitter. Why would black people deserve reparations for something they weren't even alive for? So everybody here would agree with Donovan Mitchell's take on the racial, maybe not even him because he's rich or whatever, but the idea of battling racism and being mentally draining. Obviously he would agree with that. He's arguing for reparations. So let's take a look at what's the argument this time from this broad that's getting kinged all over the place for his reparations take.
Why do black people deserve reparations for something they weren't alive for? That's a great question. Let's ask Sarah Beth what she thinks. This is Jebediah. Jebediah inherited over 100 acres of land. His father.
Oh, that was funny. So let's add. So he puts if you're just listening, he puts a white girl, white young lady. Maybe her name is Sarah Beth. I don't know, but to me it sounds like he just made up a name with a Trump hat. Why do you do a Trump hat? It looked like you're doing the bidding of your Democrat masters. I'm going to talk about this in a second, this video, but just as a suggestion for y'all, if you're going to argue for reparations, keep Trump out of it, because Trump doesn't have nothing to do with the reparations argument. So he starts out with a white, some pure looking white girl to attack for his argument.
Alive for? That's a great question. Let's ask Sarah Beth what she thinks. This is Jebediah. Jebediah inherited over 100 acres of land. His father's South Carolina plantation in the late 1800s. He was able to use the money from that land to buy 100 more acres. In the mid-1950s, passed the land down to his son, Mark, who then sold the land for $5 million. Mark started a successful real estate company that he passed down to his son, Tim. Tim was able to take all of the wealth that he generated basically because he was just born. This is his daughter, Sarah Beth. Sarah Beth was able to go to the best schools, live in the best neighborhoods, and have the most wonderful extra.
This is the same bitch ass mentality. You just, I'm just going to have to, I'm sorry, this is not going to be not one of my best moments, but you just a bitch ass nigga. That's all you are. It's the same energy even if he doesn't agree with the Donovan Mitchell thing because of his wealth. This is a bitch ass mentality.
Curricular activities. He's now getting an engineering degree from Syracuse.
So what?
Already has jobs lined up on Wall Street.
So what?
He's never had to work a job. Are we really going to look Sarah Beth in her cold, dead eyes and tell her that she doesn't deserve the opportunities that's been afforded to her just because she wasn't born when the wealth is accumulated?
Oh, okay.
Why do black people deserve?
Okay, you bitch ass nigga. Let me talk about this here. It does bother me to see that mentality. You're not owed anything, my dude. I don't know who told you that. I don't know where you got that from. I've done a response on the reparation argument before. There've been slaves in Europe and literally every part of the world there's been slavery. Because people said, I need this work done on this farm way before America. I need this work done here. And I've got a bigger rock than you. I'm stronger than you. So I'm going to make you do the work. I'm not going to pay you. So allegedly, the Uyghurs in China, that's what's happening to them. You're weaker, we're going to enslave you, and you're going to do this work. Maybe we'll give you $1. Maybe we won't give you anything. Maybe you're lucky to be alive. Do this work. That's life. Life is savage. The number one lesson is don't be enslaved. And my start to that argument is you're not owed anything in life. I don't know who told even if there was slavery. Obviously there was, but I'm saying even considering slavery, you're not owed anything. Not a goddamn thing is owed to you. I talk about this in nature all the time. When a shark eats a baby seal, the mother doesn't get reparations. When a shark eats a daddy seal and the mommy seal's by herself, they don't get reparations. Because that's how nature works. That's how God works. That's how life works. This is all created by God. And that's all the beautiful part of the beauty is the ugliness of nature. This is not a God-fearing man from my point of view. You're not entitled to anything, bruh. Don't care about slavery or anything. And the uncomfortable fact is, I don't care if you're Ashley Babbitt's mom. I don't care if you're George Floyd's family. I don't care if you were fired because of the pandemic. Let's just have a full-out, open discussion. If you have the power to get money and sue and do that, go do it. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. They have the power to send money to the sunflower country. I don't want that. If you got the power politically to do something, go do it. If you have the power to get reparation, go do it. I'm just making my take as to why I'm not for it. I'm not for reparations for the 9/11 responders. I am not for every time the government messes up, we can't dole out money. How about you come to my side and say, we don't need the government? It's time to break up with the Democrat Party. and try something else. It's deeper than that. It's a mentality that we have to get towards. For a group that is so focused on slavery, like obsessed with it, I think the obsession might have been handed down. I'm not blaming anybody. You can have that opinion, but it is an obsession. And for a group that is so obsessed by it, and I think it could have been handed down by genetics even. I'm not an expert. Maybe I'm off on that, but that's how thick it is. It feels like this obsession has been handed down genetically. For a group so focused on slavery, you would think they would be the strongest leaders, the strongest proponents of liberty in the present. What if you've never really left slavery? It just changed forms. The more libertarian side. That's what I would like. But I'm more in big picture. Of course, you don't talk about the people that sold you into slavery from Africa or wherever else. That's where it started. And you don't talk about that the vast majority of Americans didn't own slaves. That was the rich of the rich. Slaves were very expensive. So you want to get money from people that didn't get, there's white people, a lot of white people that didn't get money handed down to them. But why are you looking at the next man's pocketbook? Why are you worried about that? My ancestors were enslaved. My last name is handed down via slavery. It's Irish. And my ancestors are Jamaican. Makes sense because it was a colony of Britain. I have my last name proudly because I'm going to make it whatever I want to make it now. I'm grateful to be alive. My ancestors could have been wiped out because of slavery. So grateful to be alive, grateful to have an opportunity right now to build my own legacy, whatever that is. Maybe I'm a janitor and I live a very humble life in a very small apartment. That doesn't mean my life isn't good. I'm not going to look at some person that got hundreds of acres handed down to them and look at them like what he's doing is looking at them like their life is better. That's not how I view the world through the lens of my faith in God, in Jesus Christ. That doesn't make somebody better. That doesn't make someone else's life better. I don't look at your wealth and your stuff that you have and it doesn't affect my life. So I have an opportunity to build my own legacy, whatever that is. I'm grateful for that. And the number one lesson is not to get enslaved. Because you're not even if General Sherman made a promise he obviously couldn't keep. You look at General Sherman like he's some god or something like that because he promised 40 acres of some of the best fertile land in this country. Yeah, it could have been done, but it wasn't done. He didn't have the power to make good on his promise. Right now, I'm focused on, are we enslaved now? The Jeffrey E. Island client list is not public. All your argument is an excuse to ignore all the craziness and corruption from the Democratic Party.
Let's ask Sarah Beth what she thinks.
Well, that's why you had a white girl with a Trump hat there. It's all this reparations is your excuse to say, I don't care about you maybe being involved in a therapeutic that has people suddenly collapsing. I'm going to ignore that. I'm talking about these people who want reparations. I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to ignore the child diddling stuff with the Jeffrey E. Island. I'm going to ignore the corruption from the Democratic Party. I'm going to ignore all of these social ills that are poisoning your own people from your standpoint.
What grade level does he do math at?
I believe that's first or second grade.
What do you think about that?
I'm horrified.
We also spoke with this father, Gregory Gray.
My son is really in desperate need of tutoring in math. And how did my son pass if he didn't know none of this math?
Now, Project Baltimore has obtained student assessment scores from just one class in one high school that show how widespread the problem appears to be.
They passed him. They just passed him along.
And leading the way is iReady, iReady is a system schools use to measure at which grade level a student is performing. In Baltimore City schools, iReady assessments are given in math and reading 3 times a year to measure a student's progress. The scores we obtain show some students are performing 10 grade levels below their age.
I'm going to ignore all that as long as you break me off some money. That's all that is. And keep the hell away from me with that loser, victim, ass clownery, dumbass mentality.